We live? All right. I think I did that. Sorry, I'm pressing buttons here. I got my Stream Deck. It's not on long enough cable to hold it up in front of the camera, but it is fantastic. It gives me all these buttons I can press, and press them I do. So here we are. So it's Speedify Live Office Hours. I'm your host, Alex Gizis. I'm the CEO of Connectify. I'm here with Kevin.
Hello.
He is the lead developer on Speedify. So this is Office Hours. What is Office Hours? Office Hours is your chance to corner Kevin and make him answer all of your questions about Speedify. So it's awesome. So you post comments wherever you're watching this, underneath the video, to the right of the video. Who knows? They keep moving things around on me. And we'll see them, we'll post them, and we'll answer them. So it's a good, fun time. Did Alex break something? He certainly did. But seems like it's working. You guys can hear me? We got audio? Yes. Yeah, I hit a button while the intro was playing, so the intro ended. But that's okay. I'd hit the button late in the first place, so here we are starting on time. Getting us back on schedule. I'm all about efficiency. So one of the reasons that we started a couple minutes late is that Kevin and I were arguing about TCP. TCP, the Reliable Transport Protocol, is Transmission Control Protocol that most stuff on the internet uses. And will TCP ever be replaced by a different protocol? So, whoop, there we go. Look at me pressing buttons, making stuff appear. What do you guys think? Is TCP with us forever? And it's worth it. You also argue what the definition of forever is in software. All right. Adam says, my fiance and I are new Speedify users. Yay. We travel in our RV full time and are always trying to find reliable solutions. All right. My question is, what settings do you change to optimize for Zoom calls?
So I think the default settings out of the box for a lot of people should be good for Zoom calls. So we default to having what we call our streaming enhancements on, or our streaming mode, which is going to look for what we think are real-time traffic. So video calls, audio calls, live streams, things like that. And we prioritize that traffic, and we'll do some extra work to try and make sure that stays online. So, it's prioritizing it ahead of other traffic. And if we see the performance is starting to degrade on one connection or the other, if you have two connections, we'll try and send some of that real-time traffic redundantly. We'll just sending your other traffic normally. So try and make sure that it gets through and try and give you a good experience. So unless you have some sort of special setup or special needs, probably the default settings are going to be fine for you in Speedify. I mean, you might want to adjust priorities of your different connections to tell Speedify how to use your connections. So we can review, if you set them to primary, that's telling Speedify you can use these connections all the time, use it as much as you want. If you set something to secondary, that's telling it, okay, it's a little more, we can show that.
So to get to these settings, right, if you click on an adapter here, right, there's this priority setting.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about.
So if you leave it on automatic, Speedify tries to do some determination itself by looking at your ISP and the type of connection and everything. To set up a default setting, but you can adjust them. So if you set something to primary, you're telling Speedify, use it as much as you want, try and use it all the time. If you have multiple primaries, it'll try and bond them together. Secondary is for something that's maybe a little more expensive, or you want to try and use a little less. We'll default cellular connections to secondary. So it tries to use the primaries first. If the primaries are too slow to support what you're doing, it'll add in the secondaries to give you more speed. Or if the primaries start to fail, it'll add in the secondaries. And then backups for something that's really expensive that you only want to use as a last resort. So if it's seeing that the primary and secondary connections are all not working, that'll switch over and bring in the backup connection. So you can make adjustments there to tell Speedify how to use your different connections. But in terms of modes and things like that, I think you should just try the default settings out of Speedify. And if you're seeing issues, there are things you can tweak, but it should be good for most people.
All right. Good day. I have a question. How to configure the program that does not use VPN?
So it's going to depend what platform you're on. We have some different options depending on the different platforms. If you're on Android, we have an app bypass option that you can go in and select particular apps that you want to go around the VPN. That's done at the operating system level. Then Beyond that, we also have our bypass settings that you can set particular services or sites that will bypass. And we have a list of different services, and you can go in and enable those, and those will route them around the VPN. They don't go through the VPN. We don't have, across all platforms right now, a way to add custom domains in the user interface, but there are any of the platforms where you have command line access, so Windows, Linux, Mac, where you can get to the command line. You can add custom rules of particular domains or ports or IP addresses that you want to bypass Speedify. I think, yeah, we have plans that in the future we're going to expose that stuff in the UI so that everybody can add custom rules if they want to, but it's not available today. So yeah, so different options depending what platform you're on. And then obviously if you're on something like Linux or whatever, you can set up IP tables rules or things like that if you want to route certain things around the VPN. If what we have doesn't do what you want.
Right. Desraj, please add custom server deploy service. Yeah, we hear you. Self-hosted servers. Everybody wants them. They're coming. Yeah. All right. Oh, so we have a new video, Between Two Palms, that's just launched on YouTube in our Speedify account. It's a discussion about Tesla's new TTP and TTPOE protocols, the Tesla Transfer Protocol, as I recall. So Tesla has invented these new internet protocols to replace TCP inside supercomputers. Some arguments. That's what set us off on this. Will TCP ever be replaced? All right. Hello, everyone. Do cellular devices have to be plugged in to work with Speedify?
No. So yeah, different ways you can use cellular depending on different platforms. So obviously, if you're on a mobile phone where you have your SIM card or whatever, you can Speedify can use the cellular modem directly. But beyond that, you have the option of you can USB tether or Wi-Fi hotspot from your phone and connect another device to it. But we also have a feature built into Speedify that allows you to use cellular from other devices running Speedify that we call pair and share. So if you have your phone running Speedify that has a cellular connection, if there's other devices on the local network running Speedify, it can share your cellular connection over the local device, over the local network to those other devices. So your computer, for example, can make use of the cellular from your phone without having to be plugged into it.
So let's do this. Yeah. All right, so we're looking at Speedify. Look, we discovered a device. Let's see what it is. Why, it's Alex's iPhone. So we click it to pair, send a request to pair. On my phone, oh, look, see, it pops up. I accept it. And voila. Oh, I was in backup. But who checked that? So voila, now we have a third internet connection on this computer, which is Alex's phone. Let me get this Android phone set up. Messing around.
Yeah. So anyway, so no, they don't have to physically be plugged in, but I guess it depends on what type of cellular device you're talking about. If you have little cellular modems, there's different ways that people set them up. Sometimes we see people that do, on Linux VLAN setups where you have a bunch of cellular modems that connect over Ethernet into a switch, and you can do VLAN tagging and have them all come in on a single Ethernet port. Speedify will see each of those as different interfaces. So yeah, depending what type of cellular device you have and how you're trying to connect it, there's different options. But in some way, it needs to show up as an interface for Speedify to use, either physically connected in some way or through pair and share where we access it over the local network.
Nice. John asks, could you use two different metered Starlink plans? Use the plan with more allotment as primary and use the plan with less monthly allotment for upload bonding only.
Yes, yeah, you can do that. So yeah, typically because the Starlinks have fast download, we're only going to use the download from the primary connection unless it really slows down. But because the upload is slow enough, will bond in the secondary connection for the upload. So yeah, if you put one Starlink as primary and one as secondary, it should use the download from the first one and combine the uploads for the other two, or for the primary and secondary.
Hey, Peru.
Hello.
All right, for live streaming, is better speed or redundant? Usually, the best is, so bonding mode, we're talking about this, speed with the enhanced speed, enhanced streaming on. So that's what I'm doing here. So it's interesting, right? So it recognizes the streams, right? I'm streaming to Twitch and YouTube Live, and so it recognizes them, makes them higher priority. And then based on the stats for my connections, it then decides for those what's the best mode. And if you look at this, streaming redundantly. So the software has actually decided that redundant mode, for some reason, based on how my connections are doing, is the best for me. And since I have that streaming enhancement on, it just does it automatically. Yeah. So, you know.
And it's doing it just for that streaming traffic.
Just for that streaming traffic.
Where if you pick redundant mode, it's going to send all your traffic redundantly, which might not be what you want. But I guess just
what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
I guess a little bit of packet loss.
Yeah. But yeah, so just to talk about the difference between speed and redundant though. So speed is going to try to combine your connections to bond and get more speed. Redundant is going to try and mirror the packets, send copies of the same packets over multiple internet connections to make sure that they get through and try to, you know, minimize your latency. It'll deliver whichever one gets to the other side first and then just throws away the other one. So it's using extra bandwidth, but to try and give you more reliability. So cases where you want to use redundant or might want to use redundant is if you're doing kind of low bandwidth stuff that all your connections can handle, and it's really important, you can send that stuff redundantly. But you know, if you really need the added up speed of your connections, you know, you have low upload speed and you want to combine the two upload speeds of the connections, you want to use speed mode, you want to use the bonding to get that extra speed, because the redundancy is going to slow down to the speed of your fastest connection, and we'll just be mirroring.
Yeah, but you know, Pavel's asking, yeah, if you really know, so in general, that's, you know, the speed with enhanced streaming is best. But if you really know that your internet connections are at the edge of range, redundant might be the right thing, right? If you have packet loss on both connections, it's okay to give up. Yeah. Like, let's send everything on both, and whatever gets through gets through.
Yeah.
You know, don't, you know, because especially if you have latency, the packet loss is so bad, right? Because, you know, the packet gets sent, and because TCP, one of the wonderful things about it, delivers all packets in order. If one packet gets lost, it'll not deliver any of the packets after it, even if it has them. So it has to say back, hey, I didn't get that. Then you have to send it again. So it's way more than 3 times the latency gets added to the latency of not only the packet that was lost, but every packet after that, right? So, you know, packet loss is awful. And if you know you're having it, well, it's like packet loss times latency, right? Yeah. Packet loss times latency. Because, yeah, actually, it turns out if you had literally 0 latency, packet loss wouldn't slow you down at all, no matter how much you lost. But that's not anyone's situation. Everybody's got latency. All right, here comes a question. Becky Live Aviation. Thank you. I have a Netgear Nighthawk. I'm trying to boost my internet signal to stream at the airport. If I want to boost one specific device, do I set priority as never? No. So never means we would never use that connection, like ever, even if it was the only thing left to keep you online. You might want to set other things to backup. If you were really sure you want to use just the Netgear or whatever, go ahead and set the airport Wi-Fi to backup. Although I think, you know, I mean, maybe you want to switch it, right? So our default is that when we see something as cellular like a Nighthawk, we'll put it in secondary, and we'll put the airport Wi-Fi to primary because we figure it's free. And if the airport guest Wi-Fi is bad enough and your plan is good enough, that might be the opposite of what you want. You might want to make the Netgear primary maybe even make the Wi-Fi secondary, or possibly even backup if you really don't want to use it unless it's a disaster. But I would not put it to never. That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, unless, I guess it's not clear what you mean by device, whether you're talking about internet connections or if you have multiple devices and you just want to run Speedify on one of them. Yeah, I guess I want to use all available. So they commented lower there. I want to use all available.
So it's probably set all of them to primary or
Yeah.
all of them to secondary. Turns out it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you can clarify any more about your setup, if that didn't answer your question, yeah, let us know. But yeah, it sounds like you want to use all the internet connections you have available to you. But yeah, just run, if there's a particular device, you can just run Speedify on that device and have it hooked into the different connections. And then if you have other secondary devices, you can connect them to just, one of the internet connections and not run Speedify or change the priorities of that other device or something.
This is a fault. I mean, he was asking, when should he use redundant? I know when Speed, who's a streamer, arrived to Peru, he used Speedify bonding to Starlink minis. But in Bolivia, it doesn't work with Starlink or Speedify. In this country, it doesn't work with anything. So, I mean, obviously, Speedify is bonding whatever internet connections it can find. It's asking the operating system, what internet connections do you have? Or what network devices do you have? And then on each one, we try to see if we can get to the internet. If we can, we try to use it. So, yeah, I mean, if Starlink literally doesn't work in your country, I'm not going to use the Starlink. But we don't make assumptions about connections for the most part. I mean, just if you were in one place and the Starlink was working great, and then you go to the next place and the Starlink's working terrible, we'll treat it as a great internet connection in the one place, and we'll treat it as terrible internet connection in the other, because we're doing real-time statistics on these things, and past history doesn't guarantee future performance or whatever it is that
Right, yeah.
the stock market people are always telling you, and it's true of the stock market, and it's true of internet connections. So yeah, we don't give a huge amount of stock to the history. You get in a new place and it stinks, we will treat it like it stinks. You move dish around and it gets better. In less than a minute, we'll realize, oh, this thing's pretty good. We'll start using it within a second of it working, and then build trust pretty quickly. Maybe they meant that the airport connection has never, since it's likely slow due to a large amount of public usage. Yes, that was my guess, and I would still, unless it's literally worse than nothing, I'd set it to back up in that situation. If it's just awful and it's I wouldn't use it unless it was the last internet connection in the world, then I would set it as backup, right? Yeah. If I wouldn't use it no matter what, either because they, charge you $50 a gigabyte, well then never mind, I'm not paying $50 for this, or it literally doesn't work. A lot of the people using Never have weird setups where they're running, a Linux virtual machine that's claiming to be a router that gets to the internet, even though it's not connected to the internet. It's just a virtual machine. Why they're doing that, I don't know, but we have a lot of users, and some people are doing that, and they say, how do I get Speedify to stop trying to use this thing? And so that's what it's there for. Never really reserved for weird situations where you just know something is not real. Yes, I have mobile broadband, which is the Nighthawk, that I'm adding additional cell phones to boost signal. The Nighthawk is Ethernet into my laptop. No. Wait, need to boost signal to Nighthawk. Assuming that.
Right. So yeah, if you have the Ethernet plugged into your laptop and you have, some other connection hooked into your laptop, either maybe through the Wi-Fi or you're tethering your phone or whatever, then you can combine those two signals, run Speedify on your laptop, combine the two signals, and then you should be.
But I mean, there's a quick problem. This is an example of someone who needs to adjust the priorities, because Speedify, if you leave it on automatic for each one, it'll say, hey, the airport Wi-Fi, I can see it is connected into some kind of cable modem or fiber or whatever. It'll adjust that to automatic because that seems good. And the Nighthawk, it'll say, oh, Ethernet good, and then it'll say, oh wait, this is coming out of some mobile cellular provider. It might be really expensive. I'll switch it to secondary. So that's not what you want. So you'll want to go into your Ethernet, which is the Nighthawk, and you'll want to change the priority from automatic to probably primary, because that's the one you want to use the most. And then on the Wi-Fi, it's up to you. Maybe you leave it as primary, so the two are sort of equal, or maybe you just say, hey, that's secondary.
Because they're adding in a cell phone. They have a cell phone they're adding into, which is going to default to secondary. So either you leave both as secondary or put both as primary if you want to bond the two. Yeah,
that's right.
Unless you want to use the cell phone less, you
maybe
could
just set everything to secondary.
Yeah,
that could work just fine. All right. Do you use Starlink during your streams? Often, but not right now. To be honest, we have 2 Starlinks on the roof. Kevin and I came in this morning. First thing we did, we went to the Starlinks to use them and discovered that somebody had unplugged everything. The routers were unplugged, the Ethernet switches were unplugged. Someone had disassembled our Starlinks. I'm sure doing some sort of experiment, but they didn't put it back. So hopefully someone out there is putting our Starlinks back together, and if not, that's what Kevin and I are doing before lunch. So often we use Starlinks, but not today.
And we do other testing with the Starlinks all the time, and
Yeah.
things like that with Speedify. Yeah.
By the way, I note in Peru, from the last update of your server, Speedify works better when bonding Starlink and LTE. The community of Switcher Studio recommends your bonding services. Good.
Great.
We are always working hard. I'd like to see it on your show because mine is always giving me issues. Yeah, so our experience with Starlink is mostly good. So one, make sure you're running the latest version, because we have hit problems and dug in and said, oh my God, once the Starlink, we have to do this different or that different. And in fact, Mike, who's sometimes on the show, should be out there testing some more improvements on Starlink. So if you're using Starlink, we're actively improving things. They're weird, right? Every 15 seconds, every Starlink in the world switches to a different satellite, and they all do it at the same time. So combining a Starlink with something that's not a Starlink, even if the other thing isn't very good, can often give wonderful advantages, right? Because Starlink's so funny. For us, it's what, 250 down, 50 up, 90% of the day. But 10% of the day, it gives different results. Sometimes 1 megabit. It can be awful. And at that point, even adding in a 3G cell phone could be this wonderful improvement that stops your stream from being interrupted. So I really recommend Starlink plus anything else. That crappy airport Wi-Fi that you don't want. Make that secondary. So when the Starlink goes to hell, you get crappy Starlink plus crappy airport, and it probably keeps you online until 15 seconds later. The Starlink will get better. It's not live on your show because mine's always going to be issues. New stuff coming out for Starlink or just normal stability? We have some Starlink specific. So, it's both, right? Anybody complains, we dig in. At this point, we're digging into every complaint. And Starlink is interesting because it is brand new, wildly popular. We've got thousands of paying customers now using us with Starlink. And it's weird. does stuff other internet connections don't have this totally change every 15 seconds. In cellular, sometimes you change towers, particularly when you're driving. You I guess driving on the highway is cellular. Uh,
It's
five
somewhat
G cellular on the highway is probably kind of similar to Starlink. Um, but yeah, so people are seeing stuff with Starlinks, and we're digging in, and so there are general improvements. But when we go to make our improvements, say what are people complaining about? It's usually weird things they saw out of their Starlink. So I feel like half our improvements are Starlink specific, and half are for other people. And sometimes other people benefit from it, right? I mean, Starlinks, boy, they just change latency and speed so often. But I think some people at the edge of range on cellular, people driving on highways, just suddenly discover that the improvements we made for Starlink actually benefit them.
Yeah, a lot of times the improvements we make, it's not special cases of if Starlink do this. I mean, it's a lot of times just generalizing certain algorithms or
If
fixes.
latency is worse than we ever imagined latency could get to, or jitter is worse. Yeah. So Starlink is a huge amount of jitter. We've also been doing a lot with the KA satellites. A lot of them have latencies of 700 milliseconds, 900 milliseconds to get a packet through. Yeah, it's interesting that the space stuff, man. It's the hot new area. Like all the new ISPs, all the new technologies that people are trying to use Speedify with turn out to be space stuff. But you realize it. I wouldn't, the satellite in space, they're not that far away. They're hundreds, thousands of miles up. Why does it take it so long? Well, it turns out, your message has to go up at the speed of light, and then down at the speed of light, and then the other guy answers, and it comes up at the speed of light, down at the speed of light. Turns out, the speed of light to the satellite times 4 is how much worse it makes your latency to go through a space-based thing. So it turns out moving the satellite up, from 300 miles up to 400 miles up, you can measure that. That will show up in your ping results, right? 100 miles, times 4, that's a whole millisecond. So, all right. Oh no, they had to stop watching because they're at work. Tragedy. All right. All right. Here we go. Yeah. 4G fixed wireless access, FWA, fixed wireless access. So that's stuff like where you get the T-Mobile or whatever. They'll sell you the router that's using 4G or 5G. That's FWA in the industry, fixed wireless access. Plus Starlink can be a perfect combo. That is correct.
Yep.
I don't know. So I'm in Comcast country here. Comcast was running a bunch of commercials bashing the T-Mobile fixed wireless access, where they would show people be using the T-Mobile internet connection, and a group of old ladies with T-Mobile phones would walk by the house, and the internet would slow in the house. Turns out really happens. At that point, switching to the Starlink when the group of T-Mobile customers are standing outside your house. It's a real thing.
Yeah, but not that cable is perfect either. Plenty of times the cable drops out. And
it seems like the cable drops out for like a couple seconds a day here. It's not much, right? It's 99.99%. That's not good enough if you're streaming. Steven points out that an Apple event is coming. Maybe they'll announce 2 Wi-Fi cards or let us freaking use dongles.
I doubt it.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I wish you best of luck. Yeah, so right now on Macs, what Steven is alluding to, it is impossible to get another Wi-Fi adapter. It either comes with a Wi-Fi adapter or it doesn't. You cannot use any USB or any other type. There's no way to add a Wi-Fi to your Mac if it doesn't have one. There's no way to add a second Wi-Fi to your Mac. You can't buy those USB cards on Amazon. Apple does not support it, does not let companies write their own drivers anymore for it. That's it. You are just currently out of luck if you have a Mac and you want to join two Wi-Fis at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you could get some sort of extra, either a little travel router or external device that then hooks in by Ethernet to your laptop, you could connect that wirelessly. There's workarounds.
You can set up one of those little GLI net routers to join a Wi-Fi network, share it out the Ethernet, and then you can probably Ethernet to a USB.
Yeah, USB.
Adapter
Right,
into your Mac. That absolutely can work. I did a cool thing with a Raspberry Pi, where I convinced it to join a bunch of networks, combine them with Speedify, share them out the Ethernet, and it worked great for about an hour before my Mac overheated and shut off the USB port until I rebooted the computer. So it turns out, you should not power a Raspberry Pi straight off your Mac's USB port. You could plug in. You can. Let's start now. I need a USB hub too. The beauty of just a Raspberry Pi that does everything plugged into my Mac failed. All right, T-Lars, account question. I purchased an annual sub through the website, received an invoice, but never received a link to set up the account. Not in the spam folder. Emailed support several times, no response. Can you help? I would email support speedify.com again, and I don't understand why they would have response or whatever. Feel free to forward that invoice too. That would help. There's a very good chance that if you just go to myspeedify.com, and use the email address you purchased with, that you can navigate through.
they're
either doing login with Google.
Login with Google, or try and reset the password and see if you can get a forgot password email or something.
But reach out to support first, although that might even be what they tell you to do. And email from the account you purchased with. It can be confusing. Sometimes people put in one email address when they buy and then a totally different one. But hey, the invoice would give that away. So if you could attach that invoice, I'm sure we'll straighten it out.
Because if you got the invoice, it's not like you mistyped your email address or something. Or I'm trying to think of why you wouldn't.
iOS 18.3 is the same as Starlink access. So there's starting to be some Starlink stuff. Well, so T-Mobile is doing stuff with Starlink on iPhones, and Apple is doing stuff with Globalstar, which is a much smaller competitor. But both of them at this point, they're both rolling out their services like now. They're just like text. Neither are doing internet yet. Starlink apparently did a test, and they showed they could do cellular internet through a phone, but it was 17 megabits of cellular per 100 mile by 100 mile area. All the phones in that area, which is so 8 times the size of the city of Philadelphia, sharing 17 megabits. They made the wise decision to, at this point, just say there is no internet, because it would be shared so thin. The thing about it is, of course, they only work outdoors. You have to see the sky. They're putting cellular towers on satellites, and it can beam down the 300 miles to reach your phone. But at that point, the signal is so weak, it pretty much can't make it through a piece of paper, right? It can't make it through the leaves on a tree. It certainly can't make it through a roof. You need a good view of the sky to manage to send a few texts. So it's pretty limited. But don't get me wrong, if you're on a boat in the middle of the Pacific and you manage to send a text, that could save your life. I have no doubts, and I'm really excited about these services. All right. Yeah. Okay. So T. Lars has sent the invoice to support, and we will straighten this out. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get any sort of response, like a ticket number or anything like that from when you send in the email, so you should get an automatic reply with a ticket number. If you can tell us what your ticket number is or anything like that, that we can track down what's going on. Because usually our support team's pretty good about replying unless something is something's happening with your email, it's getting lost or something. I don't know.
And I will tell you, we have discovered one spot. Make sure that's the email address you're using. One spot where we have been failing to respond to people is people who used Apple and hid their email address from us. Apple gives us that fake email address and then rejects all of our emails sent to it. It is a bug in the Apple private browsing.
Private relay, yeah.
Private relay. And Apple is not fixing it. I think they've convinced themselves it's not a bug. Why should companies be sending emails to people on private relay? But you shared with us that email address and you sent us a message saying you wanted customer support, and it is rejecting our responses. So, serious issue. You use a different email address. I mean, we're even okay with you using it, but you're going to have to use a different email address. So in fact, on Friday, we're putting out a release where with someone with a private relay attempts to contact support through the app, we're going to say you have to give us a different email address. Because those just don't work. It's not our fault, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. So private relay, broken as far as we can tell, and lots of other companies have the same issue. All right. Boom, boom, boom. So what's coming in this week's? Feels like we have a new update coming, right?
Yeah, I think we're planning release for the end of this week. And a bunch of various bug fixes. We do have new enhancement to our rate limiting feature. Previously, you'd set a rate limit, and it would just apply the same rate limit in both directions. So if you picked 5 megabits, it would limit you to 5 megabits download and 5 megabits upload. But now they have the ability that you can set separate limits for download and upload. So I could say, limit my upload to 5 megabits and limit my download to 100 megabits, or don't limit my download at all, but limit my upload, those types of things. So you can set completely separate limits in each direction. So that's a new feature that's coming that some people have asked for. Trying to think what else. I know we've had a bunch of various bug fixes and stability improvements and things like that. Trying to remember if there are any other new features that I'm forgetting about. I don't know, I'm blanking at the moment. But, yeah.
All right.
All right. Apparently, support team found Lars's ticket.
All right. All right. Very good. So we got your ticket. Any update for the router? Latest beta update has broken my Speedify GUI on the router. What kind of router are you using?
Yeah, no, we keep having issues with
GLINet keeps breaking things.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that they're just sort of sloppy and not malicious, but they break so many things with every release that it's getting suspicious. But I'll just say that. GLINet beta update.
All right, I guess we'll have to check that on some of our routers.
Check it again. See what we have to fix this time.
Barrel
AX3000.
Okay, I think we've got one of those, so we can. All right, yeah, we'll look into that and see what happened. But yeah, for the last update, whenever they broke something a few weeks ago, we put out a fix for that. But or
See, just stop by and say use support over the weekend. 10 out of 10 from Alexander. Would support again. Alex D. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, our support, we're very responsive. I assume there's some technical difficulty with why we couldn't get emails to T-Lars, because we certainly respond to pretty much everything. All right. So yeah, do check out our YouTube channel. We've got all sorts of videos. These Between Two Palms have become very popular. People seem to like watching us sit around and argue about things like Tesla's new protocols they use inside the supercomputers. So that's a new one that's up, but there are a lot about, Starlink, Starlink in the military and all these things. We'll sit two of us in a little talk show thing. We'll argue about some technical topic, and for some reason, some of them have hit millions of views. So check it out. And all right. Anything else we were supposed to say? We never did argue about the TCP stuff, but it seems like we were busy enough.
Yeah.
Talked about what's new in the new version. Talked about how you should go see the Between Two Palms videos. That's all I had, really. It's 10:44. I think we should probably let Kevin get back to work. How different is GLINet, AstroWarp, aggregation versus Speedify bonding? I don't know. Never met anybody using AstroWarp, to be honest. The stuff, I know how the WAN 3 stuff is. And that stuff is just simple kind of load balancing using IP tables.
Yeah, GLINet has some stuff built in where it'll ping over your connections. If it detects one's failing, it'll switch over to the other one. So yeah, that's just kind of, hard switch over if it thinks that your connection's failing. Where Speedify, we're actually, bonding packet by packet, so you can have connections get interrupted and your applications don't notice. You can seamlessly switch between connections without any interruption, no hard switches with IP addresses or anything like that. It's much more responsive. Sometimes these pinging things can take 10, 20, 30 seconds to notice that your internet connection dropped out, where Speedify, within a second or two, or even less than that, seamlessly can switch you over between different connections.
A couple of our customers, so there's a new AstroWarp thing that GLINet's working on. It's, I guess, in beta. Some people think it might be more competitive. None of our customers, as far as we know, have tried it. There's a lot of concern about adopting a network bonding protocol that will touch all of your packets that was developed entirely in China. So nobody I know is, at least as far as they tell me, even considering looking at it. I think there's a lot of concern about giving all your data to China, which is what you would be doing there.
And yeah, we haven't tried it. So
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
the details.
Yeah, it binds in the cloud, probably. Yeah, I don't know. I have some concerns. Besides the fact that this is just bloody hard, and I just wouldn't touch a new entrant at this point. The amount of work to get it to work. Kind of work in the lab well enough to convince yourself you can put it out, and then people start using it over Starlinks, and you discover that they're weird. And using it over, 5G, which turns out to be totally different than 4G, versus, I don't know. Unless there's 1,000 developers working on this, they're probably a couple of years away from having something to use, but I don't know. And plus, there's the China thing. Nobody I know is trying it. People have seen it online and asked, but nobody wants to try it. So I don't know. If any of you try it, feel free to tell me. Whatever. All right. So yeah. So check out our YouTube channel. Lots of neat videos there. People are pretty excited about them. We continue to post TikTok. I guess I hear TikTok is back. Lots of the highlights of our other videos get cut down to 30 seconds or a minute and post to TikTok, and some of them explode. Again, millions of views. 30 seconds of me explaining something about a Starlink. I don't get it, but I guess I'm just old. I seem to like it. So, all right. Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to let you get back to your regularly scheduled day. Right. Patriot Corps. Thank you for streaming. You are welcome. We're here for you guys. So thank you to everyone who watched, especially everyone who asked questions. And I'll see you all online.